Hey, we are back. We are live. We are wired. This is Joe McCarthy, MoJOE Studio, with my three gen partners, Rick Olson and John Weirauch. Greet the folks.
Hey, greetings, everybody. It has been an awesome thing to get together on a regular basis, chat together, interview fabulous people across America, and very excited about sharing the next hour with you, my friends.
I
Where are you?
agree.
Okay, go ahead, John.
I agree. And greetings, everybody. You weren't asking me, Joe, but I'm in Michigan. I'm in Franklin, Michigan. Super excited to be here. Super excited for our interview tonight with the one and only Rick Olson.
That's right. Yep, Rick Olson is definitely a one and only kind of guy, which is absolutely awesome. He is.
So I probably shouldn't tell you that I've met 9 other Rick Olsons in my life. Okay.
Maybe in name only.
Where I come from, a dime a dozen. I had one in my class in high school. If you live in Minnesota or Wisconsin, you are going to meet a few Rick Olsons in your day. That's for sure.
That's right.
1 out of 9 ain't bad.
That's
Pretty
right.
much guarantee that they won't be the Rick Olson that we know and love.
Mhm.
So what we're doing this evening for those, or this evening for me, and actually for all of us now, we are doing an internal interview. We've done some amazing external interviews, meeting some leaders that are doing remarkable work across the country. It's been absolutely an amazing and pleasure of a journey to get to know these folks. And now we get to turn the spotlight inward, and we've done this already for me. We've done it for John. And tonight we take a look at Rick Olson. Who is this man who shares his name with so many?
Right.
It's the Scandinavians, right?
That's right.
So Rick, I'll just give people a little context where I met you, and John can share how he met you, and then we'll ask you to share a lot of your journey with us, at least the
Sure.
highlights. So I met Rick Olson originally back in Montana, which ironically is where he is sitting right now. He's not in the same room where we met, but he's in Montana where I grew up. And I met Rick Olson when he was a youth speaker back in the day, traveling the country, inspiring youth like me to make good on their lives and to do something significant, have an impact. And I was inspired. I remember some of the great stories, even to this day, that he shared. And as I've shared before, one in particular was about him as the slowest tight end on his football team, catching this pass in the open, dreaming of the glorious touchdown that he would make, only to be run down by everybody on both teams, including the cheerleaders and the mascot and people in the stands. So continues to be a marvelous storyteller, and always inspires me and inspired so many to really do something with their lives that was significant, challenging us to do great stuff, to become good leaders as he is. And so I lost touch with Rick for a better part of 3 decades, but we are now back in touch, and I couldn't be happier. So Rick, it's great to have you as part of my life yet again.
Thank you, Joe. And just a brief comment before we go to John. I remember meeting you. You certainly got my attention. You were a standout student as a high school student. Followed you through the years, came to college. Great to see what's happened with your life, and so glad that we're reconnected. Just the story about that football story, that was a very painful moment for me, because up till that point, I had not caught us all year. Nobody in the stands knew how slow I was. And all of a sudden, I got the football in my hands, 80 yards in front of me, nothing but green grass. And I knew the moment I turned upfield that the world was about to discover how slow a runner Rick Olson is. It was a great secret, but everybody knew when the safety who fell down helped tackle me. The linebackers who had blitzed turned around and came and got me. The fat lineman waddled down the field and helped get me. Everybody got me. And I made it halfway to the goal line. I did not make it 80 yards. So my secret was out at that point.
Still a great story to this day.
You bet.
It's great to hear that Rick and I have yet another thing in common, because I personally thought I was the slowest tight end in the world, but maybe I've got
Maybe not.
a match here. That's too funny. So yeah, Rick and I have known each other about 6 or 7 years now. I met Rick because he was coming to Frankenmuth Credit Union. He's a leadership consultant for us. He does something called Coaching College, where he comes quarterly and works doing kind of a workshop and keynote speaking with some of the leaders and with the entire organization, and then does some one-on-one coaching after that. And Rick and I started meeting one-on-one, and we kind of hit it off right away. We realized we had a lot in common as far as our vision of leadership and what needs to be done in an organization. And he was gracious enough to every time he came, we would either have some lunch or have some dinner and get to hang out a little bit and get to know each other more and more. And fast forward to now, it's one of the biggest honors I could ever imagine to be in this 3Gen podcast with someone as accomplished as Rick and Joe as well. And and to be working here with him on Rick Olson seminars, it's just an absolute pleasure to have the relationship with Rick that I have.
Thank you, John. It's been a wonderful journey. Every time I come to Frankenmuth, I do my best to steal away time with you, and those are always wonderful, wonderful times. And so I love the quest that you're on. Very bright future as far as your leadership and who you're going to impact and influence, and not just the future. I mean, it's happening right now, but it's a joy to be a part of that. So thank you for the kind words.
Thank you.
So Rick, as I was trying to put a title on this podcast, on this episode, one of the things that jumped out to me as I view you is you have, for all of the years that I've known you, been a leader of leaders. You have inspired from youth to adults, people my age, younger, older, to really find their stride, to maximize their gifts, to do something great with their lives, to be the best that they can be. And so I view you as a leader of leaders. Do you view yourself that way?
I've been very privileged to work with amazing people, young, old, start of their career, end of their career. It's been an awesome privilege and blessing to do that. I feel very blessed. I have great friends that are very close to me all across America, and many of them happen to be leaders of great organizations. I've always liked the phrase "run with the runners." Find the folks who are making it happen and run right alongside of them as fast and hard as you can, and they'll help propel you to greatness. So I've gravitated to big thinkers, make it happen people who were on a quest to become better, people who were on a quest to grow and stretch. I just like hanging out with people like that. I am a student for life. I found common ground with these great thinkers, and so have been blessed to spend time with wonderful leaders, and have discovered that even though these people are great leaders, oftentimes it is lonely at the top of an organization. When you head up an organization, you are expected to be the fountain of all wisdom and knowledge and insight, and make courageous decisions, give recognition and affirmation to all employees, and make the gutsy call. And yet many times that doesn't always flow back up to the top. It oftentimes is a one-way street flowing down throughout the organization. And so I find that these folks are very excited about having somebody to kind of slide in next to them who can talk and think and be a thinking partner on the similar kind of issues that they think about. It's a safe place for them. And that's been a wonderful role to play. It's built great connecting relationships, meaningful conversations, and that's kind of how it's unfolded.
It's so necessary. It's such a necessary thing, in my opinion, that executive coaching or executive consulting that you do, because like you said, I mean, it is hard to when you're in that position in the organization to connect with someone in that way where you can exchange ideas in a safe place. So I love how you explain that. That's awesome.
Just an example, this last year, my friend Jennifer that I work with very closely at Stearns County, They have 1,000 employees. COVID hit, and it was her responsibility to give oversight to sending 1,000 workers home to shelter in place. 1,000. And still work effectively, do all the work that the county has to do, but in total isolation, separated from everybody. She handled it beautifully. And then talking to her many months later, she said, and now I bring them back. And bringing them back is more challenging than sending them home. And that's the lot that befalls a leader. Running audibles, two hands tied behind your back, making it up in real time, no script, no practice run, just this is the lot that you have. So to me, it's very important to stay connected to people like that, to encourage, to give insight, to help in their journey as well.
So as I hear you describe that, Rick, which is very inspiring, it really, I think that's probably a misnomer to say leader of leaders, because what you really are is a friend of leaders. You're someone who shares ideas, who encourages them, gives them a sounding board that's safe, that they can share things that they might not be able to share with anybody else. And so perhaps leader of leaders isn't the best way to say it, because what you really do is you're an advocate. You're an advocate for leaders. You're their friend. And I know from you personally that there are a lot of things that show up in those relationships that are way outside of the business relationship, and it becomes personal because they learn that they can trust you. They know that you truly care about them. And as you've said many times, and we've all heard, that people don't care about what you know until they know that you care about them. And you've done an amazing job, because it's who you are, of caring for people. And as a result, they've been able to connect with you in a deep and meaningful relationship, professionally and personally.
Joe, you talked about our early days. Those would be back in the 80s when I was connecting with you, Joe, the high school student. At the time that was happening, I had another youth speaker friend who also traveled the country. He spoke in many of the same places that I spoke. And one day he asked me a question. He goes, Rick, you and I are speaking to the same crowds. You might be there one year, maybe I'm there the next year, but same crowds, same people. He said, Rick, I'm getting to know all these people, and it's crazy, but all of them talk as though you're their best friend. And he said, I got to ask you, what's going on? How does that work? And I said, it has a lot to do with my philosophy of speaking. And here is my philosophy of speaking. If some leader brings me in to speak to their organization, when I go to that organization is going to get my best. But I'll be honest, about 50% of my energy is going to go to that leader that brought me in. It's the leader who put the name on the line. It's the leader who signs the check. It's the leader who had the vision. It's the leader who orchestrated everything. And long after I'm gone, it's the leader who carries out the vision of whatever it is that we've talked about. So I'm not going to shortchange the crowd, but I am going to put a ton of effort and energy into the leader. Everything, they're responsible for getting there and then moving forward beyond that. So I want to make sure that I give them everything I can to make sure that they're set up for success long after I'm gone.
That's great, and I'm glad you touched on the speaking portion. We were kind of focused on the consulting and the executive coaching, and what's great about what you've done with your public speaking is it led to the Rick Olson Speaker School, which is where Joe and I met, and how this whole thing kind of launched. And so speaking really, public speaking is kind of your wheelhouse there. And I'm just curious, when did that start? How did it start? What led you down this path?
Great question. I'm going to take you back several decades on this one. And three game changers back in my youth. One in elementary school, two in high school. Elementary school, first day of sixth grade was a game changer for Rick Olson. I walked into class. My teacher wasn't there. There were no students. I was hoping for a breakthrough. I wanted a fun teacher. I'd never had a fun teacher. I'd had very serious, kind of boring teachers. And it's sixth grade. It's like, can I finally get a fun teacher? And I'm sitting in the back row waiting for my teacher to come in, hoping for a young, funny guy just out of college or a beautiful young lady just out of college. I don't care. Either one would be great. And the door opens and she walks in and I'm devastated. She's the oldest teacher in the school. It looks like it's going to be an incredibly long year. And her words, well, she read everybody's name. We're supposed to raise our hand and identify ourselves. And when she said Rick Olson, I put my hand up and she said, "Are you Andrea's brother?" Because I had Andrea. She got straight A's for me. And I go, "Yes, I am." And she said, "I expect you to do as well as she did." And she violated every rule of professional counseling and psychology. And she compared me, stupid Rick Olson, to whiz kid Andrea. And a professional counselor would say, "That must have been a devastating moment for you, Rick Olson." And in fact, what happened was it made me think about something I never thought about in my life. I never thought about getting straight A's. That thought had never passed through my mind. And you're saying, "Rick, good night. You're in sixth grade. What have you been thinking about for 6 years?" All I thought about was whatever my teacher said. And they said things like, "Rick, what seems to be the problem?" I thought that all teachers did was point out when you screwed up, when you messed up, when you came up short, when you screwed it all up one more time, and then they were on you. And that's what I thought teachers did. But she's not. She's telling me that I could get straight A's. She believed in me, extra assignments. And when the year's over, I was top dog in my sixth grade. I went from a C student to an A student. She's on Mount Rushmore in my life along with my mom and dad because she changed the entire trajectory of my life. Decades ago, I still talk about her all the time. It's amazing what a few words can do to change the trajectory of somebody's life. No Mrs. Gustafson, I might have gone right on being a C student, an underachiever. One person thought I could get straight A's. I believed it. Changed everything. Fast forward to my junior year, my father went into the ministry. Shocking. I'm a normal kid. Now I'm not a normal kid. I'm a preacher's kid. I'm a PK. Overnight, everything changed. And year one, my dad goes to a minister's conference. We have no money. The church is poor. Dad can't find a fill-in speaker. Who speaks? Rick Olson. I preached Sunday morning, Sunday night, the following Sunday morning, 3 sermons as a 17-year-old kid. Were those sermons good? No, they were not good. Did I have too many notes? I did. Did I clutch the pulpit? I did. Did I have bad eye contact? All of the above. They were not good. But what happened was my dad believed in me, and my dad gave me the honor of a lifetime to turn over the pulpit to his son. And I've told him, I said, "Dad, you wouldn't have known at the time, but your son's going to go on to speak to over 1 million people worldwide. Your son's going to speak to crowds as large as 40,000. Dad, you got all that started way back then. You believed in me and you opened the door." That was number 2. Number 3, senior year, my buddy Bob says, "You going out for basketball?" I said, "Of course." He said, "Are you sure?" I go, "Of course. You know, I love basketball." He said, "Do you really want to sit on the bench again this year?" I go, "Now, Bob, that kind of hurt." But Bob was right. I loved the game. I just wasn't very good. And he said, "Don't go out for basketball. Go out for the one-act play." Bob was the best thespian to ever come through our high school, did plays with Jason Robards, Ingrid Bergman. He was an amazing actor. Starred in every play from freshman year to senior year. But senior year, Rick, try out for the one-act play. Scrap basketball, tried out for the one-act play. That experience was a game changer. Mr. Brown, drama coach, high school teacher, but we gathered in his class for auditions. I'd never done any acting in my life. And now it was my time. He just said, "Rick Olson, front of the room." I stood up in front of 30 of my peers. He said, "Rick, I want you to lay on the ground and be a piece of bacon." He said, "I'm going to give you some commands. I want you to respond to my commands." And I haven't laid down yet, but I'm standing there in front of all my friends going, this may be the nerdiest thing I've ever done in my life. I'm in 12th grade here. I, for 12 years, tried to be cool, like 24/7, always be cool, never be anything but cool. And now I'm about to lay on the ground and be a piece of bacon. Can I do this? And all that's going on in a nanosecond in my mind. And I just crossed over and I said, you know what? In my mind, I said, I am going to be the finest piece of bacon this man has ever seen. And I laid on the ground and I began to shrink imperceptibly. And then he said, I'm turning up the heat. It is scalding hot. And I shrunk as much as I could. I convulsed from one side to the other. And I spit as far as I could spit. Spit went up, spit went to the side, spit went to this side, spit went everywhere. And I landed the lead role in the play. All right. And my friend and I, we worked and we worked and we worked, and we went to districts and regionals. We kept advancing. We finally got to the point where they gave out the Best Actor award, and everybody knew that my buddy Bob was going to get it. I mean, and again, Jason Robards, Ingrid Bergman, he was an amazing actor. But the MC said, and the Best Actor award goes to Rick Olson. And I said, excuse me, Bob. And I went out and got my trophy. But that experience knocked every fear and inhibition out of me. That experience gave me the courage to just bring presence to the stage. That experience taught me to project so that the back row could hear me as clearly as the front row. That was a game-changing experience. So thanks for the question. I would say those three events, even in my formative years, were things that began to propel me in this direction.
You know, as I hear you tell those stories, it's amazing how things can turn just in one sentence, with just a set of words, like you said, where you imagine a different possibility for yourself, you embrace it, and then you just take the actions as if it were true and get yourself going that direction, that's really bottom line. The kind of consulting that you do is that you in turn are that person for so many other people, where you see the possibilities in people. You're such an encourager, and an affirmation is like your middle name. And you're giving that gift that you have received from those three people and your parents, as you mentioned. You're giving that back to generations of people, and I'm a recipient. John's a recipient. I know there's countless others. So it's amazing how that not only changed the trajectory of your life and your career, but also has changed many lives as a result.
I had an experience about 3 hours ago where it happened one more time, consulting all day long with leaders from just a wonderful credit union. And one of the guys I talked to really thought that he was probably going to be the guy to become the new CEO. And it didn't go that way. It went another way. And here's a guy who much of his life had been kind of primed toward this moment of becoming the CEO. And now I'm looking at a man who has the disappointment of discovering it's not him, it's somebody different, and he's not. And I knew it kind of took the wind out of his sails. And in that moment, I'm thinking and praying, what do I say to my friend? This is a really, really tough thing for him to deal with. And I just said to him, I said, that faith is important to me. It's foundational for my life. And here's an insight I want to share with you that I have learned, through my faith. And that is, in Bible times, many of the people who made an incredible impact on this world were not at the number one spot. Moses was not at the number one spot down in Egypt. That was Pharaoh. Joseph was not at the number one spot. Daniel was not at the number one spot. A lot of these people were in that number two slot. And yet they're the ones that history remembers. They're the ones that impacted the great change. And so just giving this man hope and courage that all is not lost because he didn't ascend to this position. But there's much that can be done in that number two position. And so I've been blessed by people helping me over the years with that. And it's awesome to help people when life looks a little bit upside down, to maybe give them a different perspective.
Yeah, that's a hard concept to grasp for a lot of people. It reminds me of the leading without a title stuff that we talk about a lot too. Right. It's just, if you can get past that moment of kind of, I don't want to say blind ambition, because ambition is a great thing, and growing and trying to improve yourself is a great thing. But yeah, that promotion doesn't always happen. But man, you can have such an impact on those around you and on the culture of your organization as well as the bottom line. It doesn't have to be CEO. It could be anybody. I mean, one of the favorite interviews I've done with the three of us was Melanie, who is a receptionist, right? She greets people coming in, and she has such a profound impact on her organization. It's just the title does not matter.
It really doesn't. It's all about influence. It has very little to do with title. Yeah.
Yep. And your life, Rick, not only do you say these things, but you do them. You believe them so much that you live them out. So it's very believable. It's very influential when you're not just spouting principles, but you're actually living out and fully believing what you say and what you say to people and about people. What's the quote that you share with us a lot, Rick, about affirmation and how important that is? Do you remember? It's the one about master's degree, I believe.
About what?
I hate to put you on the spot, but you said things like, and I don't want to misquote you, that's why I asked you, but you said, you can get a master's degree, you can get a PhD,
right?
But if you're not, do you remember that quote?
I do. I said, you can have your master's degree, but until you've mastered the art of affirmation, you still have a lot to learn. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So yes, education is great and I'm all for it, but there's more. And it's how you treat people, how you make people feel. I know in my videos that I've been sending out, I just sent out video number 7 on the one theme of make me feel special. If you can do that, if you can have that impact where somebody walks away from you and say, you know what, you make me feel like I matter. You make me feel special. People are going to respond extremely well. You're going to help them. You're going to have no shortage of friends. I mean, life just kind of works when your focus is impacting people in that way.
Excellent. Excellent. And I want to, so much I want to say on that, but actually I want to steer us back to your public speaking, because first of all, the stories were great. And one thing you didn't mention that you've told me before is that, I don't know if it was 6th grade or somewhere back then, you were frightened. I mean, you were frozen by speaking in front of people. You would try to give a book report and you couldn't barely stop your teeth from chattering. And that's actually something I can resonate with, because I felt the same way back then. And it takes some work and some experience to get past that. So now I want to hear, you've told me many stories throughout the years of some crazy encounters you've had while you're public speaking. And I just curious if you could share 1 or 2 of those. I just want to hear what you think the craziest is.
Well, some of the ones that stand out. One happened in Minnesota. They asked me to speak at a banquet, and I'm telling you, it was just beautiful the way they'd set it up, and really they brought out their best plates and maybe china, but it was just fabulous. And it's a very special night. Rick Olson's the speaker. We're ready to go. It was in the basement of a bowling alley. So the entire time I speak, all you can hear is balls right over my head, and if they hit the pins, there was this loud bang and the pins were going everywhere. And that happened the entire time I spoke. It was just a ridiculous setting to hold a banquet or to any kind of a speech. That happened real early. One of the biggest, craziest times was Las Vegas, Caesar's Palace. I was speaking a large crowd at Caesar's Palace. And I do a thing when I speak where I walk off stage and I walk back on stage, and I do so with 2 attitudes. I do one with a really good attitude. I do one with a really bad attitude. And I like to visually depict for people, how do you impact people when you walk into work? And if you have a great attitude, you just bring a lift to everybody. But if you have a bad attitude, I mean, you just totally screw up everybody's day just by you walking through the front door. So I'm ready to do this big dramatic thing. We got so many people there. It's Caesar's Palace. It's bigger than life. And I walk off the stage and I go back on the stage, and the door shuts and locks and I can't get back on the stage. And so now it's ridiculous because the crowd is waiting for me to come back. I can't get on the stage. I try everything. I am locked off the stage. I cannot get back. And now I go on this wild quest where I'm running all through Caesar's Palace to try to get back into the room that I left. And I can't do it anywhere on the stage. And I have to go around a good share of Caesar's Palace. Sometime later, quite a bit of time later, I walk in the back door of the auditorium and down the hallway there and up to the stage. And it lost a lot of its impact when I'm there like 7 minutes later, and they have 7 minutes of downtime as Rick Olson's trying to get back on stage. So that was that. pretty bizarre.
I was expecting a big round of applause when you finally made it through, or was it just kind of silent and awkward?
No, there was great laughter when I came through, and when I told them the story, they loved it.
Right.
And so, yeah, sometimes you make lemons out of lemonade, and you go, okay, so. They were going to like the story of Rick Olson coming out with the bad news, but they'll never forget the speaker who couldn't get back on stage. They'll be telling that one for a long, long time. So, yeah. And then I remember a company in California, big time company. They put together a killer day. They had me. They had many other outstanding things scheduled for one day. They brought all their people together. They put so much money and time into this thing. And the day was so tight that there was no flex time. It's just like one great thing after another. I'm one of them, and they have me on for an hour, but anyway, I know my slot, and I get up to speak, and I probably spoke for 2 minutes. They pulled the fire alarm in this hotel, and we all had to go outside, and we're standing outside, and it took forever for the firemen to come. And we're just standing there, and I had an hour. Now I got 50 minutes. Now I got 40. Now I got 30. I haven't talked to these people. The CEO is just doing a slow burn over here. He's like, it's killing him. And that hour-long presentation probably went 15 minutes that day. All right. I felt very bad for the man. Of course, I had to do some scrambling to pare my hour presentation down to a 15-minute presentation. But life is a box of chocolates. You never know what's going to happen.
And I would like to comment too that your attitude, even when things go wrong, is very helpful. I think not only to yourself as the speaker, as the person on stage, but also to the people in the audience. When you get locked out of a room for 7 minutes, it's very tempting, I'm sure, to go back on stage defeated, having excuses, telling all the people, how bad things went. But you get up there and you tell the story, you make it fun and funny and live in the room. And like you said, that's probably the one story they haven't forgotten since that day, as opposed to had you just said, this sucks and I'm so stupid that this thing's happened. So
your attitude
is everything.
It is. And back in high school, we studied Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway. One of the things that I admire about Hemingway, every character that he ever portrayed had one common trait, and that was grace under pressure. And it doesn't matter if it was the old man in the sea or whatever story Hemingway's telling, you're always going to have that same theme, grace under pressure. Something goes horribly wrong. How do you handle it in that moment? So we might give Hemingway a little credit here too, but to me, that's really been a big deal as well. Look, plan for the unexpected. Things are going to happen. It's not always going to go right. Technology is going to give you problems. You're going to get locked out of a room. A fire alarm is going to go off. What are you going to do? Just grace under pressure.
That's awesome. It reminds me of the concept of mind like water. I think it's an old karate term, and I read about it in the book The Servant by James C. Hunter, and talks about, imagine you're in this calm, cool lake. There's not a ripple on it. A rock gets thrown into it, and the water responds just as it should. It ripples out just as it should. It doesn't overreact. A pebble doesn't create a tidal wave, or a boulder doesn't create a tiny splash. You react just as you should. You don't overreact. You don't underreact. And just think of how either of those situations could have gone much differently. Like if you underreact and just kind of sit there and wait for someone to open the door, or maybe you just kind of slip off at Caesar's Palace, be like, you know what, forget this. I'm too embarrassed. But you gotta react just as you should.
It's a great illustration. I like that one, John. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a very good insight.
So over the years, Rick, I know that your career has been a common thread in terms of being a public speaker and being an advocate and being an affirming, encouraging person to the people that you speak to. But it has made some changes along the way. You've gone from youth speaker when I met you to more of a general public speaker, keynote style speaker. And now your career has evolved even further into more of an executive coach and consultant. Can you tell us a little bit some of the milestones along the way that shaped your career and shaped the way you thought about what do I bring to the table and how do you make those adjustments to change as you go?
The days of speaking to youth remain some of my favorite memories. The time when I met Joe McCarthy, awesome youth across America, youth leaders I worked with. absolutely wonderful and fun days. Back then, it's hard to beat when you're speaking at a youth camp at Glacier Park in Montana, when you're speaking at a youth camp at Padre Island, when you're speaking at a youth camp at Martha's Vineyard, when they ask you to speak at their ski retreat at Vail or Aspen. I mean, how do you beat that kind of stuff? And that was my life when I was doing youth speaking. Great places, great situations, kids who are just wide open and ready to be shaped. Is an incredibly gratifying time of life. I just got a text today from somebody who heard me speak in the 80s in Nebraska, and they tracked me down and let me know that I had a big impact on their life, back in the 80s. It's pretty rewarding and that sort of thing. That was a wonderful season of life. Went from there into education, went to a college, developed a youth major for a college. That also was a very special time of my life. Taking young men and women who wanted to do what I had been doing, working with youth, having the maximum impact on youth, and creating a youth major where they could just immerse themselves for 4 years in this whole thing of how can I be an outstanding youth specialist in my field. That was an amazing time as well. Following that, moved into the world of business speaking, business consulting. And when I first got started, the only thing I could kind of envision doing was keynote speaking at conferences, speaking at conventions. It wasn't an easy field to break into. Nobody hires you unless they've heard you. And nobody's going to hear you if nobody hires you. It's like the chicken and the egg. It's like, okay, so I think I'm okay, but you've never heard me and nobody's hiring me, so I can't invite you to come and hear me. And so how do we get started? So my quest back then, and that was about 1990, my quest back then is, look, I am going to speak at every chamber and rotary I can in the city of Minneapolis, city of St. Paul. That's where I lived. I'm not going to make hardly a dime, but I'm going to do my best to get up in front of crowds. And I spoke at chambers and I spoke at rotaries, and I didn't make hard coming up saying, my company could use you. My people need to hear your voice. We need to get you in there. And it began to crack the door open. I began to get invitations. And so I did that. And that's my early days. And it started locally. It started in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. I probably hardly ever went more than 50 miles out of the Twin Cities, but I began to do that. And then they would tell their friends. And now I'm, up in Duluth, and I'm over in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and I'm kind of scooting around a little bit around the upper Midwest. And then a couple of years later, I'm in Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota. And a couple of years later, I'm in California and Washington and Florida. And it just kind of naturally progressed, moving outward. But I was very fortunate. I got into some wonderful conventions, association meetings, state and national meetings. And as a speaker, if you can stand and deliver in the right place, it's amazing how that just impacts everything about your calendar, your bookings, etc. Did that for a long time. Loved it. It was stimulating. Be honest, it was pretty easy. If they hire you to speak for 1 hour and they fly you to the East or West Coast, you go out there, they're going to put you up in a nice hotel. They're going to pay you. You're going to speak for an hour. When you're done, people are going to stand to their feet and clap their hands. And it's like, you were so good. And you're going to get on the plane and go home. And it's like, that was not that stressful, not that difficult. It was stimulating. The people are happy. I got paid. And I did that for a long time. And I did enjoy that. But it was quite hectic. It was always getting on planes, always the next place, that type of thing. And I'll be honest, it wasn't totally gratifying. Something was missing in my life. And I transitioned out of that world, the world of keynoting, to the world of consulting. And today I'm here in Montana. I'm here for 3 days working with a company. I'll be working with them for the next year. I'll be here every quarter working with them for a few days every quarter, working with them. And that's what I've settled into. John talks about my relationship with his company, Frankenmuth Credit Union. I'm in my 11th year of working with these people. I'll be honest, it's not as easy as keynoting. With John's group, I'm about to give my 41st presentation to his group. You can give your best stuff for 1 or 2 or 3 times, but you try to give your best stuff on your 37th time and your 39th time, it means you better have your head deep in a book. You better be learning a lot. You better be stretching. You better be researching, because you can't just give your keynote over and over and over again. It has to be new and fresh. And so really, I'm like I'm back in college. I'm studying a ton. I'm researching a ton. But I go back to my ministry roots and I compare it to this. In ministry, I hung around, we called them evangelists. They were the people who would go from town to town and church to church, convention to convention. And they came out firing. They brought their best stuff. And then they left town. You might never see him again. There was the evangelist and there was a pastor. The pastor preaches 52 sermons. He's up there every Sunday all year long. The pastor doesn't have the glamour of the evangelist, but the pastor has the gratification of the deep growth in his people and his congregation. He marries them, he buries them, he watches them grow, and all that sort of thing. And I feel like in the speaking world, it's like I went from being an evangelist to being a pastor. I don't have as many clients as I used to. I just work so much more in depth with the clients that I do have right now. And those clients are doing extremely well. John's company is one of them, named as one of the top credit unions in America. Several others that I've worked with, they're receiving state and national awards. It feels really good when you kind of saddle in next to these folks and they're already good. You just kind of help tweak them to bring it to a higher level. And all of a sudden they're achieving their goals. Incredibly gratifying. And so that's kind of the journey from the youth speaking days till the days of consulting right now and what that's looked like.
Well, I want to highlight the model, at least that you do at Frankenmuth Credit Union. I know you do it with other organizations as well, of what this coaching college is, because what's so neat about it, when you talk about having that deep impact, it's not just a one-time keynote speak, at an annual event for an organization. It's a quarterly thing. It's a new topic each time. It starts with a workshop one day with all of the organization's leaders, could be mid-level supervisors all the way to the top, all the way to the management team and CEO. And then after that, he would get in front of our all-staff meeting and give a presentation to all of the employees, which is like an abbreviated version of the previous day's workshop, which is awesome because then everyone all of the frontline employees understand what all the leaders just learned for the last day. And then he follows up with a day full of one-on-ones, meeting one-on-one with every leader that he can fit into his schedule to dig in deep with them. And I know you get into stuff, some of it's work related, some of it's personal. You get into all sorts of topics, and it is just, you are just ingrained into our culture. And I know that's true with many other organizations as well. So it's just a really cool model you set up.
It's worked very, very well. And again, it's significant work. I'm pretty tired when day 2 is done. Day 2 is done right here in Montana. I'll go to sleep early tonight. It's a lot, but it is incredibly gratifying because it's not the rah-rah. Here's the word of the hour. And now you go. But it's doing deep work in people. I had people walk in today. Yesterday was day number 1 of training. I had people walk in today and say things like this. All right, so the lights came on yesterday. I've basically been doing my job all wrong. I thought I was like the best manager in the world because I answered everybody's problem, everybody's question. I took care of everything for everybody. I thought I was the most indispensable manager on the planet. And now I see that all I've done is enabled my people. I have made them dependent upon me. They go out at 5 o'clock, footloose and fancy free. I'm here at 7 trying to put my life together because I spent my whole day fixing their world. I'm stressed. They're under challenged. I have been doing my job all wrong. And it's really something to have those kind of conversations with people and just watch the lights come on. And now I get it. I get it. I'm a builder of people. That's what I need to be. I'm a multiplier of leadership. That's what I am. I'm not just a fixer of problems. I'm not just the solution go-to person. No, I'm here to wean these people of their dependence upon me. And so it's very gratifying to do that.
One of the words that has become very popular in our vernacular these days because of COVID is pivot, right? We've all had to sense that on a personal and a professional level, that with the new restrictions, with the virus, with how that affects businesses, there's a lot of pivoting that either needed to be done or the consequences might be dire. And you've talked some about some of the pivots in your life. So when you are consulting, when you're coaching, when you're with people who are at that crossroads, and it may or may not be because of COVID, but they realize that I can't continue on the way that I am going and make any progress. In fact, it might be the opposite, right? And I know you face this on so many levels. But for your own self, what have you learned, and what do you share for people who just feel, if I don't make a change here, things are not going to go well for me in the long run?
Those kind of conversations happen quite often. I work with a CEO of a company in Kentucky, and she loves my message. She loves the message I've shared with her people, but she's very honest with me, because as I'm sharing a message of coaching and empowerment, she's telling me, I'm a CEO, but I've never been coached in my life. This has never happened to me. I have no models to look at of how to do this. She said, a lot of my people, at least they were in athletics, and they had some coach in their face telling them when they screwed up and telling when they did good. And they're used to receiving feedback, good and bad. And somebody was not afraid to deal with them and speak the truth to them. And so I have all these people who are familiar with that, and they're at home with that. That's never happened. I didn't play any sports. Nobody coached me in the workplace. Nobody coached me on a team when I was growing up. I know I need to lead my people in this, but I'm a fish out of water trying to figure this out. And so I do have a lot of those conversations where, unfortunately, they've never done this. They've never just totally immersed themselves in the whole concept of coaching and mentoring others. But I do my best to say a couple things. First of all, I'm going to coach you and try to model for you how to do that. But secondly, look, coaching is not about you being quick on your feet, having a great one-liner, having a punchy comeback, having an amazing revelation. It's really not. Coaching is about you listening. Coaching is about you asking some great questions and then just sitting back and shutting up. And the moment you're tempted to rush in and fix it for them, that's the moment that the only thing that should come out of your mouth is this. So tell me more about that. I'd love to hear more about that. Could you go a little further? I want to understand that better. I said, it's going to tell that person that you really care about them. It's going to give you great information, and it's going to keep you from interrupting them. Okay. So just be quiet. Ask the question and be quiet, but keep exploring, keep pushing. And so I try to share with them, look, you don't have to be some brilliant person to be a good coach, and you do not have to be the master of the one-liner, but you do have to listen really, really well. You can work on that, and you can become that person, and you can become an effective coach.
That's awesome. And you work with so many industries, right? You're heavy in the credit union world, but you also work with governments, municipalities, and Ryan with a concrete business. I mean, you're all over the place. Is that a common theme across all your industries? What other common themes are you seeing with all these different organizations that you're getting involved in?
I'll tell you, John, when I got started, I had grandiose ideas about what I was going to do and what I was going to bring to the business world. And I was going to be the guy that was going to do the most cutting edge themes and topics. I mean, I was going to amaze these people. We've never had anybody speak about these things. And that's what I thought I would do. And I remember talking to a very wise older speaker, and he said, well, this is an interesting list of topics. He said, is anybody asking for this? I go, no, but I think it's fascinating. I think it's great. I think it's going to be just explosive. And he said, I'm going to encourage you to go much more mainstream. You've got to answer the questions they already have. You're going to have to discover the pain that their organization already feels and then try to figure out how to solve that pain. If you do that, you're going to get hired over and over again. But if you're just out there, creative, artsy, nobody's ever thought about it, no, you're not going to eat well. People aren't going to hire you. So guess who went mainstream? Mr. Olson went mainstream. I am talking, and I have for decades now. I'm talking about things I never thought I'd talk about. I'm talking about sales. I'm talking about service. I'm talking about internal service. I'm talking about external service. I'm talking about how we handle change. I'm talking about how stress has people totally whacked out in the workplace. I'm talking about coaching and mentoring and management dynamics. Very mainstream themes. But that's where America's hurting. And I started the coaching college because I saw this glaring need across the country where what typically happens for a manager is they're an outstanding employee. Someone comes up to them, taps them on the shoulder and says, you are a great employee. You would make a fabulous manager. And we have a corner office ready for you. Go get them, kid. You'll be great. And that's it. They're on their own. And about 2 days into it, they realize, oh my word, this is an entirely different skill set. Okay. I might have been a good employee. I am so not equipped to do this. I don't know how to set expectations. I don't know how to hold the crucial conversations. I don't know how to hold these people accountable. I don't know how to build teamwork. I've never done that sort of thing. And so that was this glaring need I saw. People who were put into major positions with no background or training. It's like, you know what? That's the need I'm going to go after. Started the coaching college. I said, look, you have a great position. You haven't been given the tools that you need to be successful. Let's work on those things. And even today, I mean, it was just a thrilling day. Yesterday was a training day. Today, people came in less than 24 hours later. So here's what I've done this morning. Here's what I did last night. I've outlined this. I've set up my coaching times for the next 2 weeks. I had my first coaching time this morning, and they're just buzzing because they have a plan. They have a strategy moving forward, and they know it's going to build because we just started. We're going to be doing this many more times. But to all my speaker friends, I'm just going to encourage you. If you want to be creative and artsy, God bless you. Good luck. I hope you can eat. But if you will answer the real questions that people have, even though they might be quite mainstream, you're going to be busy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So true. They're mainstream for a reason, right? I mean, there's common topics across all these industries. Leaders face similar challenges, does not matter which industry you're in. And so, yeah, you see commonalities across it, and people want to hear about it. So I'm glad you pivoted in that way.
I am glad too, and my wife is glad that I pivoted in that way, and my kids are glad that I pivoted in that way. Yeah.
To bounce off the pivot idea one more time, you've had to make some major adjustments in your career because of COVID specifically, because you were going, you were flying around the country 50 weeks out of the year, and could have done more if if your wife didn't tell you we're going to have a vacation. But suddenly you're grounded, and people aren't bringing in speakers, and you can't talk to live audiences, and so your whole career comes to a grinding halt. And yet you made some amazing realizations and adjustments and changes. Tell us a little bit about the pivot you've made because of COVID-19 and the 2020 halt of everything?
March 13th, 2020, a date that shall live in infamy. It was the date that President Trump declared the national emergency order, and it meant shelter in place, stay at home, social distance, lockdown. Nobody was going anywhere. And that day, my whole world changed. I had a fabulous year outlined on my calendar. I mean, we were set up until December. This is going to be another great year. I'm going to fly here, going to do this, going to work with this company. We got this going on. And in one day, everything changed. I'm not going anywhere. So Rick Olson, the guy that normally flies 125,000 miles a year, I flew 20,000 miles last year. Okay. I came up with a new name for myself. I call myself the stay-at-home motivational speaker. I don't suggest that for anybody. Okay. You're not going to be paid well if you are a stay-at-home motivational speaker. I have a good friend who does what I do, and he says, Rick, we are not self-employed. We are self-unemployed. And that's exactly where I found myself in March of last year. Every conference and convention that I had scheduled between now and the end of the year, canceled, postponed, delayed. None of them took place last year. One company I started working with in February, just before COVID. I was with them in February. I was scheduled to go back in April. I couldn't go in April, but by April, they were out of business. Shut the doors on their company. 70 employees, done. I mean, the casualties from COVID were staggering. I felt it as a self-employed person. I felt it very deeply. But I didn't feel the pain of owning a company and telling 70 employees, we're done. Now, there's nothing. There is nothing. There's no paychecks. There's no job. There's no work. There's no stay-at-home work. We're just done. It was a very devastating time. And so on March 13th, 2020, that decree came down, and I did what I do often. I went for a long walk. Live out in the country. It's a great place to walk. It was cold. I bundled up. I walked. I talked. I thought. I prayed. I said, God, my life is really upside down right now. What in the world am I going to do with my life? And about an hour and a half later, I walked back into my house and I said, honey, I've got it. I got the plan. I know what we're going to do. I said, I'm going to start sending out videos to people. I said, I don't know where it'll lead, but I can't get there. They can't get to me, but I could send a video. I want to send 2 videos every week. I want to send 1 video just to inspire the staff and to encourage them during this time. I want to send a second video for managers to give them encouragement from a leadership perspective. And so Rick and Lori Olson, who are so techno-challenged, it's unbelievable how behind the times we are on all things related to technology. But got out the iPhone, did a little studying, and we started shooting videos. And we shot 10 videos. Lori, God bless her, she learned how to edit them, put a little cool something on the front of them. And I just started sending them out. I send out hundreds of videos every week. And I started that in March of 2020. I've not stopped. I'm still sending out videos every week. That has opened amazing doors. Okay. That was one part of it. Now those people are, they've signed up. It's a membership. They go, you know what? We want to keep getting those videos. And so they're just members of my program called Professional Acceleration. And they get videos every week. Rick Olson had never done Zoom training. I'm getting fairly good at Zoom training. Rick Olson had never done Zoom one-on-ones. I've done over 300 Zoom one-on-ones. My website was pathetic. I told the whole world, if you're interested in Rick Olson, do anything, but do not go to my website. Call me, email me, just stay away from my website. And it was an embarrassment. And that's where Joe McCarthy comes in. Joe, man, I need so much help. I don't need a tweak. I need a total blow this thing up, start all over, and let's do it. And Joe, about an hour and a half ago, I got a fabulous comment from somebody here locally on the website. And you did an awesome job on that. But my website had not been touched since the 20th century. Joe brought me into the 21st century, and I appreciate that. Speaker school, something I wanted to do for a long time. Never did it, but nothing like being a stay-at-home motivational speaker to say, you know what, I think I have time to do that speaker school now. So that happened. I have clients now that are new and I've never been to, and they've never even talked to me about coming to them. It's all virtual. They're content. My wife loves it. I shut the computer at 4:00. It's like, all right, honey, 4:01, what should we do? So it's been great, but it has been a major pivot. But you make lemonade out of lemons. You figure it out. You're resourceful. There's still need out there. There's still a creative way to do it, and so it's been quite a scramble, but it's been very gratifying to make the pivot.
It's so inspiring, honestly, that you were able to completely change your ways in that fashion. That's awesome. You guys, I know we're running the kind of short. We're running up on the hour here, but I still have a couple questions. Can we go a little over our normal time?
Keep going. You betcha.
Well, all this pivoting we're talking about here, I have to ask the question in the heart of our 3-gen and 3 different generations here. Rick, that it seems like almost that helped you pivot towards almost your own succession planning. You've been thinking a lot about this for the last several years. I know you've been thinking about your succession planning. So similar to how you asked me in my interview, a message to millennials, I'm questioning, what is your message to executives, CEOs, or any high-level management who's looking to retire at some point in the future? What's the best advice you can give them to work towards that succession planning?
I talk to them a lot about it, leaving a legacy. I tell them, look, you are the early part of your career was all about success, and congratulations, you were an incredible success. But this is the season of life where it's all about significance. And it's, what are you going to leave behind? How is this organization going to be better once you leave? I talk to them oftentimes about that. And I have a friend, Lee Gardner, I met in South Carolina, the best succession planner that I have been around. Lee was going to retire in 5 years, knew he was about to retire. And he and his board identified 6 people who could potentially take his place. And he did executive coaching with these people, half hour every month for 5 years. And every time they got together, he gave them a high-level CEO situation and asked them, and how would you handle that? And he stretched the daylights out of his people, made them think about things they'd never thought about before. An example would be, we used to be open Monday through Friday. Our board really pushed us to open on Saturday. 15 years ago, we opened on Saturday. It's been quite a success. Now the board has said they want us to open on Sunday. We've never done that. The 7th day, every day open. The board is pushing. What are your thoughts on that? How would you handle that? What would you say to the board? What would your thought process be? There's a good stretch for somebody if they're about to become a CEO. Our investment portfolio is stagnant. It's not moving. We need to do something. What would your first line of thought be about that? Board wants to double our ATMs. What would you say about that? And every week gave them high-level stuff to think about. And he stretched those people out like crazy. And when he retired, that board had 6 killer candidates to choose from because somebody set them up for success. So whenever I'm talking to leaders, I go, you know what? You got to take a good look at my friend Lee Gardner and what he did, because that is one of the best I've seen at how do you set somebody up for success. Take the time, talk through scenarios, stretch them in the safety of a one-on-one, give them those stretching concepts to think about.
Excellent.
It's a good plan, isn't it?
That's excellent.
I love that.
Yeah.
We are almost out of time here, but I did want to make a comment and have Rick speak on to this as well, is that oftentimes leadership is misunderstood as you've mentioned before, as the person in charge, the person with the answers, and it turns out that's not really the best way to lead. And a way that we've described leadership that comes kind of from the biblical passage is servant leadership, where the leader is the one who's more than willing to do the work, right? And has done the work and will show the way, will ask the questions, wants the employee to succeed, knowing that that's how the organization will succeed, truly cares about the well-being of everyone who works for them. Just to kind of wrap this up, Rick, and I know this has been a theme throughout your life because of your faith, because of your own professional journey, because of your own personal journey. How does that thread showed up throughout your career in the organizations that you speak with? And how important do you think that particular concept is about serving the people that you lead from the position of empathy and compassion versus command and control?
Command and control may have worked at some point in the past. It really doesn't work today. It doesn't. The days of the boss, the days of check with your superior, those days are done. Okay. It just doesn't work. Our world knows too much. Our world is too enlightened. Our world has been exposed to too much to just put their head downs and mindlessly carry out missions. It is not going to happen. The organizations that I work with flourish and thrive because their leaders do 100% embrace servant leadership. What does it look like? Looks like Paul and Vern Anderson up in Alexandria, Minnesota, running a company of 700 people. But at about 8 o'clock in the morning, the two of them slip out into the foyer, and as 700 people walk into work, the two of them are there greeting everybody, calling them by name, asking how the family's doing, connecting with them, and then going back to their office and doing leadership executive stuff all day long. But I've been there, and there are people go, Paul and Vern are the greatest. They know me. They know my family. They love them. That's a part of servanthood. Just in your busyness, taking 20 minutes to go greet your people as they walk through the door of your business. Debbie Blackshear down in Houston, Texas, 70 employees. I'm going to make a cheesecake for every employee on their birthday. 1.5 cheesecakes every week all year long. I mean, that's quite a commitment. How do they feel? They'd run through a brick wall for her, okay? Serving them with acts of love and kindness and things like that. Karen Church, who keeps a tablet by her bed because God wakes her up in the middle of the night with ideas about how to make life better for her members or her staff. And she does amazingly involved, committed things because of the heart of a servant. Where John works, Vicky, how can I help the city of Frankenmuth? How can I help the residents of our county? How can I make life better for them? And I was just talking to her the other day, and she said, when we open the doors in the morning, our thought is, how can we help you? Okay. And so when the leader is that way, that's going to just ripple all the way through your organization. This is not about just paychecks and transactions. We're here to help. What can we do to help? So, yeah, I'm seeing it across America, and I have been in a few organizations where they don't embrace servant leadership. It's rugged. There's not a lot of dynamic. There's not a lot happening. But where there is, there's some amazing stuff happening all the way through to the front lines and grassroots of the organization.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rick. This is, this conversation, as we say almost every time we get together, we could go on for hours, and we would enjoy every moment of it. But we do need to bring this conversation to a close. But as you speak, Rick, I can't help but think of when I graduated from college, my uncle came to my commencement. He was a very successful businessman, a leader of leaders, and he turned to me, and he was observing this exercises and all the people that I was greeting and hanging out with afterwards. And he says, Joe, the true measure of a man's wealth is not in his bottom line, his pocketbook, his checkbook, or his investments. It's in the friends that he's made, right? And your life is a perfect example of that. Even all these people that you mentioned, they're not just leaders that you know or people that you've coached, but they have become your friends and you've become their friend. And as a result, your life is immeasurably wealthier because of that, as is mine. And quite honestly, just that last phrase where you said, "What can I do to help?" That's really been a theme of your life. And as you've reached out to help people in whatever capacity that you are in, to help people wherever they were, it's been a great formula for success, right? Because as you give, you receive even more in return. So I'm just amazed and admire your life, your mission, your attitude, the impact that you've had on me. And I just want to thank you so much for your contribution to this world.
A privilege. Thank you.
Yeah, that Scott Hagan would also say that, right? What can I do to help? That was his theme from our interview with him as well. So, yeah, Rick, I could speak for a while about how grateful I am to know you. I just want to thank you for you're an amazing mentor. You're an amazing friend. I love the relationship that we have and where this is all going. And I just you told me recently. You said recently you've done over 4,000 presentations in your career. Do you have any closing thoughts on what that's done to you? What's the gratifying moment or an overall, I guess, how do you want to close this out here, Rick?
It has been a privilege. I'm telling you, I figured out that I've now flown 80 times around the equator of the world. That's how many flights I've had. The equivalent of, it's a lot of airplanes, a lot of airports, it's a lot of whatever. And yet it has been an incredibly gratifying life. I'm not a guy who has homes on the East Coast, the West Coast, another one over in England. I'm not that guy. But like you said, Joe, I'm a rich man as far as friendships and relationships and just the best associations with people. It means the world to me. So for me, the big deal looking back on that is not the 4,000 speeches, not the applause at the end of the speech, but it's just the incredible privilege of helping that many people to be their very best. And we've talked about it before, but as my uncle said, turn my whole world around. Rick, you're not there to impress them. You're there to draw greatness out of them. And that has been a constant throughout. If you look at my website today, you'll see that is the mission statement. No, I'm not here to impress you. I have no interest in you walking out of the room and going, that was great. But I do have a lot of interest in you walking out of the room going, I can do that. And so I think that keeping that front and center has been needed, important, and helpful. I will, as long as I live, that will always be the quest. I want you to have the confidence that you can go ahead and do it. So that's it, folks.
Fantastic. Well, for those that would like to make contact with Rick Olson, you can go to rickolson.com because now he is no longer embarrassed about his website. I've remedied that, and it's there so you can see all the things that he's doing. You can contact him, book him for whatever you might need in your organization. And we will, in the near future, launch our 3Gen podcast with this conversation and many others with remarkable leaders from around the country who have just great things to share, insights into the world we live in and how to be a leader that's really effective because it cares about the people that they lead. So on behalf of Joe McCarthy, John Weirauch, and the effervescent one and only Rick Olson, who shares his name with many, many other Scandinavians, we just want to say thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to you tuning in again. All right. So God bless you all.
And you as well. Thank you.